This is number 7 of Learning 3D. We're going to talk today about tic-tocs. I know we covered this before, but this is going to be more fun because we're going to cover advanced tic-tocs. Basically, how to do things with the helicopter while you're doing tic-tocs. We're going to start off by showing you how to control the helicopter while tic-tocking. Go up, go down, move right, move left. Whether you're doing tail down or sideways, whether you're doing sideways with tail to the left or tail to the right, whether you're doing nose down, I'm going to teach you how to control the helicopter while you're doing these tic-tocs. Then I'm going to go over 4-point tic-tocs, which we haven't discussed before, and then finally after that, pirouetting tic-tocs. We're going to start with a normal disc-in pirouetting tic-toc. Then I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do a pirouetting rainbow sideways, and finally a pirouetting tic-toc sideways. So a lot to learn here. I'm assuming that at this point you're comfortable with piro flips and pirouetting maneuvers, because you're going to need to be very, I guess you could say, proficient with those before you move on to these advanced pirouetting tic-toc maneuvers. So I hope you enjoy. Alright, here's my 700 Nitro. We're going to start talking a little bit about tic-tocs once again like we did before, and then we'll take it from there. Basically at this point in time you should be comfortable with tail down as well as sideways and nose down tic-tocs based on what you learned before. So you should be able to do tic-tocs like this. So you can see it's pretty windy coming from the right, so I'm making corrections. That's why you see the helicopter pointing a little bit to the right. You should be comfortable doing tic-tocs like these, as well as these, as well as these. The next step here is to get, once you're really comfortable with these tic-tocs, is to start playing around with them a little bit to develop a better feel for your collective management. So for example, I'm going to start doing sideways tic-tocs like I was doing before, and I'm going to try to hold my altitude. Remember what I explained earlier, a lot of cyclic, very little collective. So from this point on, if I start increasing a little bit more collective, when I'm right or left at a steep angle, I'm going to climb. If I use less collective and a little bit less cyclic, I'm going to go down. That's really good practice right there. Another example of something you can do with a tic-toc, if I start feeding more negative when I'm on the right side of the aileron, right here. So when I come here, if I feed more negative, I'm going to move away from us. Watch. More negative. Okay. Now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to feed more positive on this side. And that is going to bring the helicopter back. That's pretty good practice too right there. Remember, you can do that sideways, you can do that tail down, you can do that nose down. For example, tail down, same concept. I'm going to start tic-tocking, and I'm going to apply a little bit more collective here to climb. And now I'm going to apply a little less collective and a little bit less cyclic action to come down. Again, as you can see, as my nose is pointing to the right a little bit to counteract the wind we have right now. One more tip, and I think I explained this before when we did the original episode. In whatever direction you point the nose of the helicopter is going to travel. So for example, if I'm doing tail down tic-tocs like this, if I use right tail and point the nose to the right, helicopter is going to travel to the right. And as you can see, my cyclic staying the same. I'm not changing the cyclic to right or left. I'm keeping forward and back. I'm just changing the nose of the helicopter, its direction. So I'm going to point the nose to the left now. Helicopter is going to travel to the left. Point it to the right. Keep going forward and backwards on the cyclic. No changes there. Travels to the right. Same when you do sideways tic-tocs. Same concept. If you drop the nose, the helicopter goes in that direction. If you raise the nose, it goes in the opposite direction. So sideways tic-tocs, I'm going to drop the nose. In other words, left tail. Correction, raise the nose, drop the tail. So I'm moving left. I'm going to give right tail that drops the nose and raises the tail. I'm going to move to the right. So once you get comfortable with these things, it's a lot of things you can practice here. Is you can start doing really creative and cool stuff with tic-tocs. And a lot of these maneuvers are really, really simple. For example, we're going to do a tic-tocking sideways, tic-tocking square. So you start tic-tocking, you drop the nose, right tail. Once you get to about here, left tail. Now you're actually tail down tic-toc. Now more left tail. Dropping the nose to move to the left, more left tail, now into a nose down tic-toc, more left tail, into a sideways to where we started. That's a really cool trick. I'm going to do it once again so you can see the stick movements. We start right here. When you get here, you stop and you drop the tail. More left tail, go that way. And for example, if you stop here, simply drop that tail like I told you. Drop the nose, correction, move it that way. A lot of cool things you can do again with tic-tocs. If you're not comfortable making that switch, you could do just a square and keep it sideways. So where you get here, you lift up the helicopter, then you drop the tail, lift up the nose to go left. Then you slow it down, then you let it drop. Same thing, but we're always sideways instead of changing the nose direction. Those are really cool things you can do with tic-tocs. As the more comfortable you get, you can do more creative stuff. For example, you can start doing, say, figure eight. I haven't done these in a long time with tic-tocs, but I'm going to try it, see if it works out. Might not be pretty at all. And as you get here, say you start doing a tic-toc, a figure eight tic-toc. You can do all kinds of stuff. It requires a lot of practice, a lot of training, of course, and it requires a lot of collective management. And like I was explaining before, it is important to get just as proficient with your collective and cyclic as you possibly can. And remember, you have to use a lot of cyclic, very little collective. But if you practice these maneuvers just for fun, something as simple as going up and down or moving away and coming back towards you, it'll open the door to a lot of these other tic-tocking maneuvers. And they're just really cool to add to your repertoire of maneuvers when you're doing like a 3D routine. So now I'm going to go ahead and refuel the helicopter, and then we're going to talk a little bit about pirouetting stuff. We're going to start with in fact, actually, we're going to start with 4-point tic-tocs. I'm just going to give you a few tips. If by now you know how to do sideways in both directions, nose down and tail down, I'm just going to give you a few tips on how to make your transition from, you know, tail down to sideways to nose down to sideways again to tail down again. Give you a few pointers on how to mix a stick to get it done so it looks nice and neat. And then after we do that, we're going to go ahead and start talking about pirouetting tic-tocs. We'll start with pirouetting rainbows, move our way up to the actual pirouetting tic-toc itself. Okay guys, we're going to go out there again and show you some 4-point tic-tocs and pirouetting tic-tocs, pirouetting rainbows. But before we do that, figured I'd show you a couple of tricks here with the model helicopter. I see a lot of people do 4-point tic-tocs. Basically all they're doing is they're just basically moving the tail around, and they're of course switching from up and down to right and left and up and down again, right and left again. And that's fine, but you know, the good pilot would actually have to steer the stick to make the tic-toc look right. And by steering the stick, what I mean is, if you think about it, if you start tic-tocking like this and say you apply left tail to change your angle to this, you're changing from up and down elevator to right and left elevator. And what happens in between actually doesn't look really good if you make a jump from up and down to right and left. So basically, if you think about it, it's almost like a piro flip in the sense that, I don't know if you remember when we were doing the piro flipping episode and I show you the circular motion, the steering of the stick. Very similar here. As you start doing your, say for example, tail down tic-toc, and you're going to use left tail and you're going to go this way, as you're going around this way, when you get here, you basically have to be doing left and right. So in between this, you have to steer the stick. So you start up and you move in a circular motion to the right. When you get here, you have to be on a right-left motion. So in between here and here, you're doing this, up to upper right-hand side to right side. So when you're here, you're basically upper right to lower left on the stick. And what that does is that makes the tic-toc, the 4-point tic-toc, look a lot crisper when you're making the tail changes, the 90-degree tail changes. And that also teaches you for the future how to do what they call a big bend, which is a 12-point tic-toc, where it was actually a required maneuver at 3D Masters many years ago. I don't even know if it's still around, because of course the level of difficulties changed over the years. But a big bend was a 12-point tic-toc where you started here and you did literally 12 points around the clock. That's why it was called the big bend. So it does look a lot crisper, a lot better, a lot cleaner when you do the steering motion, and it opens the door for the pirouetting tic-tocs. After I show you that, I'm going to show you the actual pirouetting tic-toc, and I'm going to give you a few tips on how to learn that. And finally, we're going to talk about pirouetting rainbows sideways, and finally pirouetting tic-tocs sideways. We're going to kind of revisit a little bit of the episode that we did already about the chapter where we talked about rainbows, and I'm going to give you a few pointers on how to do those. Kind of similar scenario. If this is your helicopter and you're going to do a rainbow and you're on the right hand side and you're moving this way with the rainbow, whereas before you were doing forwards and backwards on your cyclic stick, now if you think about it, as you start pirouetting to the left, when you get here you should be applying right instead of forward. When you get here you should be applying back. When you get here you should be applying left. So you're still steering the stick. The collective is very different than the collective that you would use on a piro flip. Not drastically different, because you're still going back, you're going up and down on your collective, but the way you apply the collective is very different. And the way you cue on the helicopter is obviously very different as well, because you're looking at the helicopter from the side and you're not cueing on your tail or on your nose the typical way you would if you were doing a piro flip. So we're going to go ahead and fire up the 700 Nitro again, and I'm just going to walk you through all these maneuvers. I'm going to show you the motion for the 4-point tic-tocs. I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to do them first. Get the helicopter a little bit away from me to get the noise away. And I'm going to fly it a little bit on the high side, just because when I'm talking and flying makes things a little bit harder for me. So anyway, pirouetting correction, 4-point tic-toc. So you start with tail in and you do your tic-tocs, right? So the first thing you want to do here is you kind of stop, turn the tail, do a tic-toc that way. You stop, turn the tail, do a tic-toc that way. Stop, turn the tail. That's the very first thing you want to do to get started with those. Now what I was saying is I've seen people do them where they just turn the tail and they don't steer. I can't even do it that way because I'm so used to steering. It's like a muscle memory thing. But basically, like I was explaining before, if you start tic-tocking like this and you're going to use left tail, you have to steer a little bit like that. Like that. Like that. So look at my stick. Every time I make the change, I'm steering. So once you get that figured out, that's going to take you some practice. I recommend either the sim or the helicopter at the field, either way. If you use your helicopter at the field, just keep it really high, because you can easily make a collective mistake and end up like crashing the helicopter very easily. So be very careful when you practice these. Once you get really comfortable with that, and you can just take the helicopter and do your tic-tocs and do your 4 points, and then even like pirouette like this and change your angle from your tic-tocking from, say, left tail to nose down to like tail down to right. Once you get comfortable with making those changes, then it's time to start practicing the pirouetting tic-toc. Now, the first thing I recommend to practice the pirouetting tic-toc is, let me give you a quick explanation here. I'm going to land a helicopter because it makes it easier for me to explain. But basically, one of the things you want to do when you want to start practicing the pirouetting tic-toc is you take the helicopter and you start, generally as you saw me, I was doing tic-tocs and I was basically turning the tail, doing tic-tocs, turning the tail. Generally, you do a full forward backwards, full right and left, full up, forward and backwards again, full right and left again. When you start doing the pirouetting tic-toc, the easiest way to learn it, at least for me it was, is you start learning how to shift your tail with only one push of collective instead of double push. In other words, instead of going like this and like this, you go like this, and then you go like this, and then you go like this. So basically you're changing your tail 90-degree angle with only one motion of collective forward or back. I'm going to show you that. Once you practice that and you get comfortable with that, then the pirouetting tic-toc becomes sort of like second nature. Let me show you that real quick here. So basically, we were doing like this. Now what I'm talking about is like this. Back, right, forward, left, back, right, forward, left. So as you can see, I'm doing a full 4-point tic-toc, but I'm rotating the tail every time I move my collective forward or backwards instead of every 2 times. So in other words, good way to practice is you go like this, right? So once you hold it here, turn the tail, go that way, turn the tail, come this way, turn the tail, go that way. That's actually excellent practice, really, really good practice. Once you learn to do that, that's just gonna open the door like you have no idea when it comes to actually doing the full pirouetting tic-toc. Now for the pirouetting tic-toc, basically what I recommend people to do is to cue on a certain angle. For example, I'm going to cue on, I believe, nose down on the negative side. You'll know exactly what I mean. Basically, you want the nose or the tail of the helicopter to be either on the positive side or the negative side. It makes things a lot easier for you. So as we start doing that, see, every time nose is down, my stick is forward. Forward, 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 forward. And as you can see, I'm steering the stick. It's a really difficult maneuver to do and keep the helicopter perfectly in one spot, especially when you're talking to other people and when you have a wind that's blowing right to left. But that's basically the concept. I'm going to do it again, and then I'm going to put it in slow motion so you can see it. You can see my stick movements in slow motion. Here we go. That is the pirouetting tic-toc. It's actually a really cool maneuver if you could do it very aggressively down to the ground on the deck. Okay, let's talk about pirouetting rainbows real quick here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an good old-fashioned rainbow like I showed you a few chapters ago. So we're going to put the helicopter here. And we're going to go from here to here. From here to here. From here to here. So once you're really comfortable with this, if you want to start pirouetting, what I recommend is you go a little higher, okay? When you start here, the goal is just to do like throw in one pirouette in the middle. So come here, one pirouette, finish it, here, one pirouette, finish it, and just keep practicing this stuff. One pirouette, finish it, one pirouette, and finish it. Then the goal is to start pirouetting a little earlier. And be careful with your right stick. I highly encourage you to do this at your house, on the simulator, or way up high, because you can easily plant the helicopter doing this kind of stuff. But basically what we're going to try to do here is do one pirouette throughout the rainbow from right to left. So like this. That's actually 2. We'll try to do 2 again. 1, 2. So you can see my stick is barely moving on the right side. So I'm pushing forward. So basically what I'm doing here is every time I see the nose go in one direction, I push either forward or I push back. Here, every time I see this angle on the helicopter, this sideways angle like this, I'm going to be pushing back. So back, 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 okay? Every time I see this angle on the helicopter, I'm pushing forward, going from right to left with negative pitch, of course, negative collective. So forward, 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 okay? And just keep doing that several times. I'm going to be doing that once again. So from left to right, I'm going to apply positive collective, and I'm going to apply back elevator every time I see this angle. So back, back, back. Now I'm doing 2 pirouettes from right to left and 2 pirouettes from left to right. So forward, forward, forward. Now the more comfortable you get with these, the more you start mixing the stuff. And you actually start adding, like, not only just forward and back, but you start adding right. So you go forward, right, back, left, forward, right, back, left. And it starts looking a lot better. And this is something that you really, really, really have to practice in the simulator or way up high. I have very little fuel. We might need to refuel one more time, but I'm going to do one to show you real quick. So I'm right here. So as you can see, I'm steering, 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 steering. And basically, the whole concept here is that you have to have a pretty good orientation on the helicopter at all times. And usually you want to cue on something. So when you're on the right side, for example, of yourself, you're cueing on the helicopter being at this position. So you know that when the helicopter is like this and you're going from right to left, you're going to push forward. When you're on the left side, same deal. When you know when the nose is in this position, you're going to go back. So as long as you're steering in between at the proper angles, you got the pirouetting rainbow. So I'm going to fill up real quick. We're going to do another quick segment, show you a little bit more of the pirouetting rainbow just to show you the stick movements in slow motion. And then we're going to talk about the pirouetting tic-tocs sideways. Okay, I have about a half a tank, which is enough to show you. But like I was saying before, I'm going to do some more pirouetting rainbows, and I'm going to show you how you have to cue on certain angles. Again, on the right side, you cue on this angle. On the left-hand side, you cue on this angle. And, you know, of course, you can do them the other way. You could go like that. Generally, if you're using left tail, this is what the helicopter likes. Yes, you can use left tail this way, but for some reason, it feels more natural to do that way. If you're using right tail, it feels more natural to go that way. In any case, you can learn them both ways, with both tails. You know, completely opposite angle with right tail or left tail or vice versa. So you have a lot of different combinations. For me, I'm an old guy and I'm tired of flying. Too much work, too much to do in life to be able to practice that many. I can do a few variations, but not exactly all of them. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the helicopter on the right side, and I'm going to put it upside down, and I'm going to continue to pirouette. I'm assuming that you know how to do this by now, because I taught you how to do that stuff. This stuff right here, piro flips. So, moving to the left, I'm going to stabilize the helicopter. I'm going to steer, move it to the right, stabilize it, forward. See, remember what I told you before. Every time the tail goes that way, I'm going back. You can disregard my timer. Same deal here. So once you get comfortable with that, as you can see, I always cue on the same angle. Forward here, back here. And of course you can do them more aggressive. Pop the collective a little bit. So that's the pirouetting rainbow. Now the pirouetting tic-toc sideways, it's basically the same thing, but you're basically making a much quicker transition on your collective, and your cyclic is also happening a lot quicker in the sense that you're making a lot less revolutions, of course, a lot less steering from one side to the other. So you basically tighten it. So here, 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 here. That's kind of a pirouetting tic-toc. Now you can speed up the tail. I do them pretty quick. It sounds pretty cool when you do that. So it's basically, if you think about it, I'm doing a piro flip now, which you should be comfortable with, right? So you start breaking the piro flip and you go that way and that way. So your collective changes and your cyclic changes. I'm going to put this in slow motion while I do this so you can see it. So that is the pirouetting tic-toc. Of course, in more advanced episodes, we can start talking about right tail versus left tail. I can show you some reversals. You can do pirouetting tic-toc in reversals. You could do pirouetting not only 4-point reversals with right and left tail, that's actually very easy to do, but you could do actual pirouetting tic-tocs with reversals, with disc in, with sideways like I just did. Hell, you can even do them skits in. So, but anyway, I hope this chapter number 7 of Learning 3D was useful, and I'll see you guys next time.